Welcome to Schools Out. I'm Lisa Watson. Today, I'm going to continue my review of how the left used social movements to transform the culture and how Christian conservatives can steal a page from their playbook. To make sure we're on the same page, let me define my terms again. A social movement is defined as an organized effort by a group of people with a shared identity working to bring about social, political, economic, or cultural change. The good and the bad results of the feminist, civil rights, pro-choice, labor, marriage equality, Me Too, and LGBT movements is the reason why Christian conservatism is in danger of being rendered culturally irrelevant. So let's take this from the top. Think of a social movement like a recipe. Every recipe needs some basic ingredients, right? Here are the basic ingredients of an effective social movement. First, you're going to need some charismatic leadership. Think Martin Luther King Jr. for the civil rights movement and Gloria Steinem for the feminist movement. Next, every movement needs infrastructure. On the left, the infrastructure is represented by a vast network of nonprofit organizations. The nonprofits are working every day to advance the leftist agenda. Another key ingredient, powerful messaging. Social movements operate like businesses. Today, everyone calls it branding. Think of logos and slogans. Imagine Planned Parenthood's iconic blue circle that screams, "My body, my choice." It's simple and it's definitive. Imagine Black Lives Matter's fist logo. And the name Black Lives Matter, they hit it out of the park with that name. School choice is going to require powerful branding if it wants to evolve from being an issue to a movement. Once you get your charismatic leadership, infrastructure, and branding in place, you will naturally get favorable legislation. Think the 1964 Civil Rights Bill and Roe v. Wade for examples of favorable legislation on the left. And finally, the most critical ingredient is your activists. Social movements are not a one-man band. The activists are like gas in the tank of social movements. They represent the masses. And unlike conservatives, the leftist activists don't only work during election years. The activists work all the time. They march, protest, and advocate for change, and they manage the nonprofit industrial complex behind the scenes. Now, let's walk through the ingredients list using the school choice example. 1. Who are the charismatic leaders? I like Corey DeAngelis and Denisha Merriweather, but there are no MLK-type iconic figures yet. 2. What represents school choice infrastructure? There's actually great news in this area. Where the government operates 99,000 schools, there are 330,000 churches that sit empty 90% of the time. Each church represents a potential one-room schoolhouse. 3. What are examples of school choice slogans and branding? I like my student, my choice, for the same reason that my body, my choice works. It's simple, definitive, and it charges the liberals with hypocrisy when they disagree. I also like Black Minds Matter for the same reason, but we're gonna need a few more. 4, what is the state of school choice legislation? There's good news on this front too. The left's COVID overreach resulted in a wave of school choice bills. 34 states now have some form of meaningful school choice legislation, and the 3 most recent Supreme Court cases support expanding education freedom. 5. Who are the activists in the school choice movement? 3 years ago, I would have said that school choice was running low on activists. But once the left started labeling concerned parents as domestic terrorists, they turned the mama bears into an army of school choice activists. And when you get activists, you get leadership to run your infrastructure. And just like that, school choice has birthed a new breed of entrepreneur. These school choice entrepreneurs are calling themselves Edu-preneurs. An edupreneur blends his or her passion for K-12 education with their entrepreneurial mindset. Edupreneurs reject one-size-fits-all schooling. They're throwing out obsolete curriculums, and they're rewriting the rules for how you run a classroom. And guess what? Many of these edupreneurs are unashamed of the gospel. Today, I'm going to have a chat with someone who's joining the ranks of the edupreneurs by launching a school with a non-traditional curriculum and a unique class schedule. Let's get into it. Joining me today is Ivan Griffin. Ivan is the founder of the Lawrence C. Griffin Christian Academy. Thanks for joining me, Ivan.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. Glad to be here.
Ivan, you are launching your own school, and I was wanting to learn a little bit about the motivation you have for starting a school.
Okay, sure. It was a bit of a journey. So it took me a while to arrive at that decision, and there were a number of factors involved. I started hearing all the talk about how our schools were failing and our kids were falling behind. And so naturally, I was a bit concerned about that, just wondering, how to go about finding a quality education. And also, along with that, I started thinking about some of the things I was exposed to at school. At school is where I was exposed to everything under the sun that you would want to shield your kids from, whether it be porn, promiscuity, drugs, alcohol, you name it. So I started to think, okay, well, maybe a Christian school would be the way to go. But so a while back, I was an abstinence educator, and I was in and out of schools all over the metro, including several Christian schools. And so I noticed that the kids there weren't any different. The way they talked, the way they thought, their behavior, so outside of church and school, they lived the same lives and were exposed to the same things that all the other kids were. So now, don't get me wrong, there are several great Christian schools out there, but for me, I wanted to find an environment that I would feel comfortable placing kids in, where they wouldn't be exposed to the things that I was trying to shield them from. So I figured, okay, well, homeschooling would be the way to do that. And but at first, that was a bit intimidating, and I wondered if I could pull it off. So then I heard about this university model, where you're homeschooling, but you're getting help with the teaching. So I started to do a little research, and the thing that stood out most was the focus on discipleship. So discipleship is my passion. I spent some time as a discipleship leader. And so I found that within this this model, there was a community of like-minded families who were intentional about the things that they allowed their kids to be exposed to, and about discipleship. So there's a reason that we're losing our kids, and I believe it has to do with the way that we raise them and the things that they're exposed to. Gen Z is the most marketed to generation in our history, and the church is struggling to compete. Barna once reported that 59% of kids are leaving the church by age 15. And so I learned that, according to research and contrary to popular opinion, kids who are educated this way are far outperform their peers and are socially more well-adjusted than their peers. So, I figured, okay, there's no downside here. I was sold.
Okay. I like what I'm hearing. I can personally testify to the fact that the Christian kids are leaving the church. That's what happened to me. It happened in college, but obviously now it's happening a little bit younger. So I love to hear any type of solution that is specifically designed to prevent that from happening. And when you first told me about this, I was fascinated by this emphasis on discipleship because I never had that. So how does that work?
Well, so the kids will receive teaching on just every aspect of daily life, just how to navigate the affairs of daily life from a biblical perspective. And of course, the parents will be involved in every lesson, and so the parents will receive that teaching as well. So in a way, we'll be able to disciple the entire family.
Okay, all right. So let me make sure I have a good understanding. The university model, it's a homeschool combined traditional school model. How does it break down?
So the kids are on campus 2 or 3 days a week, and then they receive instruction at home in a satellite classroom on the other days.
Okay. So this is designed to support homeschooling parents.
Correct.
There's another twist that you told me about as far as the requirement for a Christian household. Can you talk about that?
Sure. At least one of the parents has to be a professing Christian, and we would like to have that parent to be able to sign a profession of faith.
Okay. And why is that important?
Well, because this whole model doesn't really work if you aren't committed to the biblical teaching.
Okay. So the parent has to be a committed professing Christian. The emphasis is on discipleship. So, what's not to like? How are the academics with this model? What are they finding?
Well, according to research, the kids who are educated this way far outperform their peers.
Okay, so if you're a Christian parent, you're listening to this show, you're looking for a solution to make sure that you pass on your faith to your children, the university model is the way to go.
It's the way to go.
Okay, perfect. Well, right now I just want to sort of touch on a couple of little controversial subjects as far as school choice goes, because I know we're both big advocates of that. And some of the pushback that I get from the government school supporters is that they claim that school choice harms students and not helps students. Do you ever get that criticism, and how do you respond?
Yeah, I wonder if that criticism is coming from the teachers' unions. Honestly, I don't believe that concern is valid because how does it hurt kids to offer them choices and allow them to choose the best option?
I agree. I mean, we get to choose the restaurants we go to, the neighborhoods we live in, the universities we go to, but for some reason, a lot of people zero in on K through 12 is different, and that only the government is suited to offer this education. So is that a criticism you hear?
Yeah, some folks seem to believe that the government knows better than we do as parents. I think that's absurd. Parents need to be able to parent their kids the way they see fit. Okay,
so continuing down this little path of not being afraid of controversy, I want to talk a little bit about how the left is promoting critical race theory. as a tool to address past discrimination. We're both Black, and we want to see Black students excel. What do you think about critical race theory as this tool to address past discrimination?
Yeah, I don't think that that's the right approach. And that reminds me of an article I saw recently. The headline said, Pittsburgh public schools approve measure to instruct teachers on white supremacy in math classes.
Okay. So.
I mean, I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. But, you know, I think we probably don't have enough time here to unpack all that's wrong with critical race theory.
I mean, I agree. I'm going to dedicate a whole show to critical race theory, but I always want to ask Black educators in general whether or not there's something I'm missing or they can add to the conversation. So we're at a segment of the show where I like to talk about school choice in the news. For me, this is about building a movement. It's not just about the issue for, a handful of kids to get a better education. It's about transforming the way we educate K through 12 students. So I like to tap into the culture. I'm going to show you this clip, and then I want to get some feedback. And for people listening, this is coming out of Project Baltimore, where the news in that area, they really have a laser focus on investigating what's going on in the government schools. So take a look and give me your feedback.
Sure.
Quick. So that's about 3 minutes.
So, Ivan, what do you think?
Shocking, to say the least. I mean, I couldn't imagine that type of thing is happening in America today. How do you pass these kids along, if they haven't mastered the material, and what are the parents saying about this?
I mean, the bottom 23 schools having not one child proficient in math. I went ahead and looked at the entire little documentary that they have. It's amazing. Look it up. It's called Failure Factory, if you haven't seen it. Failure Factory. And what was ringing out to me was that the parents just have no other options. There's no way you would voluntarily, if you had choices, put your child in a school where there's not one entire building. So that's why choice is so important. What are your personal reasons for thinking that choice is the solution to what's going on in the government schools?
Well, I think that video you showed is a great example of why choice is so important. I mean, because that would be the way to get these kids a proper education, get them into schools that are actually going to serve them well.
Correct. If people want to connect with you, they want to support the university model in Kansas City, how do they reach out to you?
The best way to reach me would be through email at ivan.griffin@lcgca.org.
Okay, say that once again.
It's ivan.griffin@lcgca.org.
Okay, so Ivan, I really appreciate you sitting down with me today. I really appreciate talking to all of the school founders. You guys represent the activists in this movement. So I wish you great luck, and thank you for listening in. Make sure to like and subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't ever miss an episode of Schools Out.